Hey there, welcome to History Chats. So today I wanted to ask a question. And that question is, how do you go about identifying the unidentified? Specifically for photographs, right? If there's no clear indication, you can't just flip it over and find out, oh, who's in this picture, who took it, where is it taken, when is it from? These questions, which are very helpful to know, sometimes just aren't included. And the way that you go about answering that question or these questions, I should say, is actually going to be different depending on who's answering the question, right? The way that I go about, zeroing in on an image of what the things that I'm looking for to make these considerations is going to be different than the way that you might do it. And I know this is true because it happens to me almost every single day here at the museum where I will take an image to, Linda and Kathy in collections, and they will see things in that image that I just wouldn't have thought to look at. Or I'll take it to Gary and he will see this. You get what I mean, right? We all have our different areas of expertise, even within the relatively narrow area of Marathon County, Wisconsin local history. We still have a lot of ways to get to the same thing. And sometimes that leads to the same conclusions and sometimes it leads to different ones. But ultimately, I think that process is a really enjoyable process. Just sit down and figure out, well, what do you see and learn, right? And so I was been trying to think of how to capture this in some way, and it occurred to me, well, why don't I just take a bunch of images? In this case, I decided to go with slide transparencies that are essentially unidentified. They're images of a thing that I don't know when it was taken, why it was taken, where. Maybe I know some of the things for some of them, but for all intents and purposes, these are essentially unidentified. Why don't I just show them to some of my coworkers and record their responses? That's what I did. I loaded up one of these with slides that I didn't really know the answers to, some of which, again, kind of did. But the beauty of the slides is it just shows you an image. So if I know the answer, cool. They might not. And the point is to show it to them and see if they can figure out, when was this taken? Where was it taken? Why was it taken? What's going on? And also, maybe more importantly, to have them walk through their process. Why did they think the way they do? Because I think there's a lot of really interesting ways to compare notes in that regard. So that's what we're going to do today. Like I said, over the course of one afternoon, I got, in the order of their appearance here, Gary Gisselman, our librarian and historian, co-host of History Chats here. Then we have Eric Conop, who is our curator of the Yawkey House Museum. And then I have Linda and Russ Forbes. Linda is our curator of textiles, and I don't think Russ has a formal title, but he is essentially the third curator here of the artifacts, and certainly has his own deep well of expertise that he draws on, just like the rest of these people. So I showed him a bunch of images, and this is the result. Enjoy.
Is that across the street?
It is, yeah.
That I recognize. Huh. I've actually never seen that image before. I mean, it is interesting. They have the tree in the right place from historic photos that I've seen. We always put the tree in the base of the turret because I guess it kind of looks better there for tours. But the photos that I've seen of the Yawkeys, they usually had it in that corner. Looks like a German society of some sort.
Uh-huh.
We have a costume,
We have ethnic, sort of.
eth-
I assume German or Swiss ethnic because of the,
Lederhosen.
yeah.
But that's an odd. Who are these people? Did they just come to sing to Mrs. Yacht or as part of an historical society church group? It looks like some kind of a. I mean, he has his German.
Yeah.
Most likely, the historical society did those kind of programming, just like we do today, right?
There's the German flag on the tree, and they're definitely
There's some Lederhosen.
yeah.
So it could be.
Yeah. It's really hard to tell. You can't even look at the the decorations or anything and go, oh, it's that date because it's a museum. So who knows when the
Right.
who knows when that Santa's from, and
Yeah.
whether or not that has anything to do with the time period. But cool.
The costumes might not be as easy to figure out because
Yeah.
they are intentionally wearing costumes that are anachronistic.
Yes, although not everybody is. The lady
Sure.
with the plaid blue vest is not actually wearing a costume. And neither is the boy or the guy in the suit in the back. He's got sideburns. He could be 70s.
All right.
You're going back.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, look at that. So that should now hers looks a little older, but they've all got the monobosom, which is essentially 1900 to 1908. And the high collar.
It looks like it's in a tavern.
No, there. Look at it's
I can't see what it is.
phone. It's a
phone.
switchboard.
Oh, it's a switchboard. Okay, so she's sitting in a switchboard thing, and those are also switchboards. So,
So
the
these
switchboard
are
ladies.
switchboard ladies,
Yeah. So now.
and
now
their
I can-
hair is got the
The
poof. It's
Gilmore.
not the '90s little bun.
Yeah.
So
Early O's.
yeah.
Yeah.
Switchboard operators.
Caught that very quickly. And then it took a while because she was looking at the dresses.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's the difference between Linda and I. She looks at the clothes, I look at the machinery. That makes sense. That's really kind of cool.
We don't know if it's local, but
That's a pretty big switchboard to be local. For that, did Linda give a date on the...
This one is actually just about the easiest to date
yeah.
because they're youngish women. I mean, they're not young, but they're still going to be fashionable.
Right.
And like by 1912, those costumes would be like totally not worn. And before 1900, they weren't out.
I mean, it looks turn of the century, late Victorian, in my uneducated
Yeah.
guess on that. I'm not a clothing guy. But yeah, that's a pretty big switchboard. It does look like it kind of continues on out of frame, so that might be a bigger city. I think the one that we have downstairs on display was an entire village, and it's about the size of the desk that this slide projector is sitting on, so I don't know how many phones Wausau would have had at that time.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, my guess is probably not local, just because
Yeah,
that looks a little
that's
big.
kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things.
I'm not seeing anything on these.
Yeah, that's because I haven't. advanced.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it's out in front of the city hall.
So they're clearing the city hall block of trees.
Kid looks like 60s or 70s, right?
Well, so the outfit on the left of the kid with those pants
Looks like 60s.
is 60s.
Yeah, mid 60s.
Yeah. That's what it looks like to me.
Um,
The
yeah.
scruffy guy doing the logs,
Yeah, it can be anybody.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
work clothes tend to be
yeah.
pretty similar. Right?
yeah, but like that looks like a turtleneck on the kid.
Yeah, almost looks like. You think this is the Beatle era? That looking at his haircut.
And hair. Yeah, so mid 60s. I mean, there were pants like that.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, but it's true. I had some kind of like that. So, yeah.
When did the Beatles come out? I mean, when did they arrive in the United States?
64, 66, 64.
I don't remember. It's got to be mid. But boy, that haircut is definitely, the long hair Beatle look.
Post British invasion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It fits 70s.
I
It
mean,
doesn't scream
the vehicles
anachronism.
look 70s, but or what
That's a good point. Yeah.
little I can see of, they don't look like a '60s vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's mirrored, yes, because on the left, on the right there would be Mount Sinai, or that's the new law office across the street. That's on 6th and they must be just not 6th, 4th Street, 4th and Grant. The law office is there. I think the synagogue would be just a little bit beyond it. But that's City Hall. I think these were all. No, it has to, if this is City Hall, so at least it has to be later into the 60s then, right? Because that's when it came in. Because the City Hall didn't become City Hall until late 60s, so.
Right. Yeah.
74?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
It could
I
be
mean,
wrong,
there were
but-
some god awful pants in the 70s too.
Yeah.
So sure. It
Yeah.
still looks 60s to me, but that's the hazard of dating from clothing.
Yeah.
How interesting.
All right. Where's the bridge?
Yeah.
Huh, no clue.
It's going out onto Barker Stewart, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think that bridge is there anymore. I think it's a walking trail. It's the walking bridge over to Barker Stewart Island. It's that little, there's a railroad name for that switch thing. I think this is the, I think this has been replaced.
So there's still a switch going onto the island. I don't think that's there anymore. Well, they don't look like railroad guys in that clothing. Almost looks like they're like magnet fishing or something. I don't know if that was a thing back when this was taken. They've got a line, or it looks like they're trying to get something off the bridge. I mean, the guy in the red shirt and like the slacks does not look like he's dressed for railroad maintenance or bridge maintenance.
That's true.
I mean, the other guys maybe, but
What's the guy is rowing a boat. So it's not kayaks, not canoe. It's a rowboat.
Yeah, which makes it old fashioned.
Yeah. I'm
But we were still using rowboats. Well,
I mean, I'm thinking 60s. It can't be more than the 70s.
I mean, you can always have a rowboat, but
Yeah, right.
motors.
Yeah. I mean,
Kinda
it's a
took over.
painted rowboat. I mean, it's not a working boat like you would normally, it's not
Yeah.
like bridge
So it's
inspection
either
boat.
an old boat or it's before the motors became totally ubiquitous. So what did we use back in the really old days when you tried to get me interested in fishing?
Canoe-
Mostly canoes.
canoes.
So interesting with,
The question is this guy part of this crew?
or just going by.
I mean, that's the one place where rowboats get used is because it can haul things stably.
And you can stop easy.
You
I
can-
mean, just, yeah.
one person can deal with it. So,
So
if he's actually part of this crew, then all bets are kind
off.
of off.
And they have long sleeve shirts, and it looks like flannel shirts, maybe,
Well, it's either
or plaid.
It's either early spring or
Yeah.
Or,
But I mean, they're not wearing
Probably.
T-shirts, which is interesting. Okay, so is
So
this
if-
really surveying or is this railroad guys?
Yeah. My bet is it's not railroad guys.
I mean, I don't see
Yeah.
whatever the thing is that the surveyors always use.
Well,
On the
I mean, it
tripod.
could be just bridge inspection. You know,
Oh, yeah.
does it need painting? Does it need,
Is it about to fall apart?
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I,
You got any fuzzy date on that or no?
my,
No, I
my,
don't. No.
I'm thinking it's 60s plus or minus a decade.
Somewhere in there, yeah. Hey, it's me again. Just wanted to jump in here and add some extra context to this last one. Because as I was editing it, I realized I really couldn't figure out how to make... So you won't be seeing this, but there's a whole section of about 6 or 7 minutes in which Gary and I ended up having a diversion conversation. A conversation, because he posed the question after looking at this image of the bridge for a while. Is this Wausau? Because looking at it, I had to concede. Nothing screams Wausau. You don't see any landmarks. It could be anywhere. It looks like it could be at Barker Stewart Island, and we think ultimately we came back around, and I think we came to the conclusion that it probably still was. But this is the sort of thing that comes up. And the resulting conversation that we had didn't really say anything, and it was really interesting to watch back, because that is that is exactly what happens when we get into these discussions on occasion. But I don't think I can make it entertaining to watch. So I'm just going to cut it, but I think it's worth mentioning here for a couple reasons. One, we go on tangents. Sometimes we go off on a direction that turns out to be incorrect. Sometimes it turns out to be correct. But that is part of the process. Very frequently, these sort of discussions are not nice and concise. Oh, here is the answer. I will also point out that I cut out long stretches of silence out of everybody, right? I want to keep it entertaining and moving, but ultimately, like, the reality of the situation is that even with our areas of expertise, sometimes we don't immediately know things. I mean, ideally, right? I gave them images that they did not see before. But even then, we can make mistakes. That's part two, right? Sometimes we make mistakes. And maybe you have been sitting here screaming at your screen for the last couple minutes saying, why don't they understand this is that bridge that I know? Sorry, we don't have all the information. Part of the process, just to point 3, sometimes it takes longer than this, right? I sat everybody down, and I think we went for 20, 30 minutes on all of these slides, and I'm cutting out most of the slides. I think this is maybe a third of what I showed them. In reality, if we were actually sitting down and trying to definitively identify where this bridge is, we would probably be consulting maps and other photographs, and we would do all of the things you need to do to verify it, right? And that doesn't necessarily translate to this viewing experience, but it is worth mentioning. Again, we make mistakes, and sometimes it takes a lot longer than you want it to find, oh yes, we were correct. This is the bridge location that, it was. I think it's just worth mentioning because, hey, I don't want to give the wrong idea that we suddenly are experts and can immediately just know things. It is sometimes a process. So yeah. And again, sometimes we get it wrong. This next bit, though, they shouldn't be getting wrong. And you'll see why as we go into it. There's no excuse. And thankfully, well, you'll see. So we have some holiday.
Yeah. So the lady in the middle with the plaid outfit, she's got fairly big sleeves. So I'd say late 90s to early O's. I can't really see how the sleeves work.
I don't know that I really have anything to say in particular on this.
There's a
one.
second in the series.
Okay.
Maybe this will shed some light. Maybe.
It's worse, actually.
Yeah, is there a little focus? I can,
Oh, is it? Oh yeah, sorry. That helps.
Huh.
that central hair parting on the older woman, is that...
Well, that's a holdover from the 80s and
80s.
90s. But this hairstyle is more late 90s to even turn
Now, what
You know.
about the young girl with those?
She's wearing something funky. I don't
mean,
know.
Look at her hairstyle. You know,
Yeah, the hairstyle is winglets, which no adult woman would wear it past like about the 1860s, but girls were fair game for cute winglets. And her outfit has the sack back, which wasn't fashionable by the late 1800s, early 1900s either. So I don't know if the kid was dressing up, but the kid's outfit doesn't match with the others. The one on the left, it's a fairly boring style, but she has fairly big sleeves. So I'm still going to go with late 90s, maybe early O's. You got any guesses?
Well, I know who this is.
Good.
Now this looks like the Yankees again.
Yeah.
And now if you go back to the one with the now that I look at it, I think that's a portrait of Lee up above the fireplace. Not 100% sure on that, but
This is the Yaki family.
And
Lee would have been born, so she would have been about maybe 10-ish at this point. So this is
Yeah.
probably around the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes
Well,
sense.
that would work. But that costume is not turn of the century. The girl's costume is not turn of the century.
it is cool to see a Yaki Christmas tree. I think we're a little off the mark with ours. Ours, if anything, looks a little bit more grand than I suppose what they would have had. Do we know where this is? Is
I was
this
just going to ask.
It
It doesn't look like the Yaki house.
No, it's definitely not the Yaki house, which is the thing that threw me off, because the image up above there, that I recognized immediately, but then I went, this isn't the Yaki house, so I didn't want to go out and say this is the Yakis,
Yeah.
and then have it turn out to be somebody completely different. But
So is that Mrs. Richardson or Mrs. Yawkey? Who knows?
That's a good question.
Grandmother.
Lee looks maybe a little young for it to be Yaki house. I wonder if this is their home up in Hazelhurst. I really don't have
Yeah.
a good idea other than an exterior photo of it, what that house would have looked like. It would track with her age. Yeah, I want to say she was about 12 when they moved up here, and she looks just a little younger than that here. So
Yeah.
And I think this is before they moved to Wausau. So if they're up in Hazelhurst, maybe you don't have to be quite as fashionable.
True.
Actually, it's interesting because people assumed that for years. But Joan Severa, who was the curator of textiles at Wisconsin Historical Society 2 curators ago, did a really good book showing people in tiny little towns wearing at least portions of fashionable dress, because women's magazines spread the fashionable look. And so they have a really good photo in that book of what looks like an immigrant Swedish or Scandinavian lady striding down a board sidewalk in a little town that I can't remember, wearing a man's hat, no corset, but fashionable 90s sleeves. So
maybe.
they knew what was fashionable, and I'm sure this family did know. I'm wondering if that's a robe or a nightgown
I'm
with
I'm-
that sack back to
yeah,
it.
I'm thinking that might be true.
Yeah. How cool. That's nice to have.
yeah, I've actually never seen that photo before.
There's a
So
few of those.
that's cool to see.
There's just a couple more, and that's slightly different. This is.
Wow. Is that Yawkey again?
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Before renovation. The Yawkey house.
Okay, now this is Yaki House, and I have seen this photo before. Yeah, the right is the front parlor, and the left is going back into the library. And today, that is all closed off. And there's one double pocket door going into the living room because during the George Mayer renovation, they of course combined their front parlor and their library into a living room, which would have been kind of the style of the time.
And
So
so
it's-
that chair, I think, is the one that still exists, the rocking chair there.
Mm.
So obviously pre remodeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love their fern.
And the remodeling was done in what, 1906?
5, 6, I think. Yeah.
Somewhere in there. So
Yeah.
6 sounds right.
Nice.
It is interesting. We have our side table basically exactly where theirs is in the image, so we got that right. And I've never looked at this one up close, but it's cool to see how different the fireplace is. Looks like a coal burning fireplace back there, and then the one that's there now is definitely wood, which I suppose makes sense for the change of their, the purpose of the fireplace from a source of heat to being decorative at that point.
Sure.
Looks like there's a pump organ maybe in the parlor. Which is interesting because right across the hall in what's now the ladies' parlor was the music room, so it's kind of strange to me that they we know had a grand piano or a baby grand piano in the music room, and then right across the hall they have another instrument. But I suppose it wouldn't be a Victorian house if they didn't have a pump organ in it, though. So, and that is kind of a parlor instrument, so I suppose it does make sense to have that in the parlor.
oh, and that's when the second floor when it was remodeled for.
That's from an
space.
exhibit we did.
Yeah,
That was that our favorite things?
it could have been.
Because I think that was your case.
Yeah, that's right. That's the case I'd worked on. Yeah.
on the airlines.
What's left of Lee's bedroom. Yeah, this is a late one. I want to say Kathy and Linda said this was like the 80s or 90s, one of the last things they did before we moved over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had each volunteer tell us what their favorite artifact or historic thing was, because we were working with cases that were fixed. And, some of them were interesting cases and some of them were very awkward. And I think it was These Are a Few of Our Favorite Things exhibit. So that would have been in the 90s.
Late.
Early
90s.
90s?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because I started in 88.
Right.
So it would have been 90s.
Oh, that's right. In 95, we moved over here.
Well,
so,
yeah,
you know,
we
but-
technically moved in 96, but
Right, but I mean, I think this exhibit predates that at least.
Yes, it does.
So it's got to be the early 90s.
yep, but that was Russ's case.
Yeah, I remember using this in the in my history chats about the old days of the museum and kind of lamenting how this looks compared to what Lee's bedroom actually is. And then Russ and Linda came up and said, we were really proud of that exhibit.
Yep.
And I mean, I didn't mean any offense to them. Certainly they weren't the ones that converted the house in the first place. But I think, yeah, I still feel better about the way it looks now. But it is a cool photo. I'm guessing this is also a Yawkey house. Is this the old storefront Main
Yes,
Street sort of that they created in the master, what was the master bedroom? For a while it was a street scene, and I think the bricks back there, which are definitely painted now that I'm looking closer, are kind of remnants of that.
Yeah.
This has got to be, looking at the slide, this has got to be about the same time, I would think, 80s,
I think
90s.
so, yeah.
So I guess that answers the question that I've gotten of what exactly happened to Main Street. It just kind of got recycled.
And this one threw me because this is the first that I saw, and I was like, I didn't realize there was that brick wall.
Ah,
So I was, for a second, I was thinking, is this the Woodson? Is this?
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
that
but
was
no,
Yorkie.
That was Yorkie.
Yeah, and these cases on the right were a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But, they worked pretty well for those beaded purses.
Yeah, and this one threw me off because this is the first one that I found,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, is that the Woodson? Because like the brick, I know
Yeah.
associate brick over there, but the more I looked at it, I was like, no, it can't be.
No, the lintels aren't right.
Yeah.
There's pretty substantial lintels on Woodson House, and the bricks are not painted.
Yeah.
But I almost said Woodson too. What happens when you donate something to a museum? Huh, we've kind of come around to that again with Peek Inside.
Yeah.
This looks like another shot of that same
I think it's from the
space.
same series,
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
what happens when you donate something to the museum?
And
it-
yeah, we had pictures. I think that's Mercy down there,
Oh, okay.
under 18. I can't see for sure. That would be Kathy's mom. She used to accession all the photographs. And that's a very nice 1920s wedding gown.
Which you must still have.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I can't remember whose it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these cases were interesting because, as you can see, they're fastened together with clips, and there was this little gap. And I forget, did we go in? Did we have to take one of those
You had to
out?
take one of them out. That was a pain in the butt.
Yeah, but some of those cases were actually better than the first cases we had over here. But and
A
some
little
of
bit
them
more
were.
permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's one. I think.
That's our old office.
Yeah. Kathy
And that was my chair.
yeah.
And yes, we had itty bitty desks, which are now accessioned, and one little table between us.
Ah, yes, Kathy. I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
I remember Mary Jane's office up there, but I don't, this must have been maybe another side room.
I think so.
Yeah. Kathy crammed in a little corner.
Do you have any idea where this is?
That's up in the attic, definitely. Trying to think of what room that would be.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And this was on the third floor.
Yes. When you come up, it's the room that now has a bunch of cabinets in it and a sink on the left-hand side. And so we just had a board over the sink so we could use that as a space. Yeah, that was our office. And on the right-hand side, behind the clothing, were the cases of glass negatives. So we just kind of, when we took it over, we just cleaned out everything we could and moved in some tables to work with and met in the evening while we were both busy during the day anyways, but the evening we could go use the library table that was in the library. Otherwise we had this area to work in, which was
A little cramped.
largely inadequate. And yeah, I think this room is bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
really?
Well, the fact that you had this slanting, the ceilings coming down behind
Sure.
you makes it feel
Also very
really
real.
cramped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
So that's early 90s because it couldn't be anything else.
Well, that should be it. I think I finished editing everything. It's kind of fun, hopefully, right? Got to see some cool pictures and some cool people talking about the pictures. Thanks to my coworkers for indulging me. Appreciate you guys. And thanks for you for watching. Appreciate you too. I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool concept. Maybe we'll try it again sometime if people liked it. Yeah, that's all I got. I'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next week for some more history chats.